In every OST, or original soundtrack, there are going to be tracks that stand out to define a character, or even the anime as a whole. For My Hero Academia, that defining track is most definitely Yusei Run. People have put Yusei Run to pretty much everything under the sun. But in this video I want to take a look at one of the most important yet overlooked tracks in the series, Anguish of the Quirkless. Anguish of the Quirkless not only helps to define who Deku is, it also grows with him as the season progresses. While the song is melancholy and slow, that doesn't mean it's any less impactful or important than Yusei Run. Anguish of the Quirkless is actually the first song that we get a glimpse of in the opening scene with 4-year-old Deku. The song has 4 main parts to it: the introduction, the cello solo, the piano solo, and the full string section. While all the pieces are part of the same song, My Hero Academia mixes these clips in order to convey key points and emotions throughout the series. I'll specifically be looking at the first season in this episode, but the applications extend well beyond into the second and third seasons as well. We get the full picture of Anguish of the Quirkless in episode 1, at Deku's flashback. Right after we're introduced to his favorite All Might video, playing the upbeat song I Am Here, Deku goes to the doctor and gets the news that he won't get a quirk. Deku drops his All Might action figure, and his mom asks if there's anything wrong with him. The introduction starts playing as a reflection of that doubt surfacing from both his mom and himself. As the doctor asks his mom about her and her husband's quirks, the cello solo begins. While the cello is somewhat muted in this scene, it represents the disconnect between his wish to be a hero and his anguish in being unable to attain it. While it's not as prevalent in this scene, it will clearly manifest itself as we move forward. As the conversation continues and they talk about normal people whose quirks manifest by this time, the piano solo begins. The doctor then says, when parts of the body aren't used, they're deemed unnecessary. This metaphor really hits home since Deku clearly feels unneeded as a result of his quirklessness. Meanwhile, in the background, the piano solo reflects Deku's loneliness in this hero society. It mirrors Deku's reality of being one of the few without a quirk. We then jump to a rainy day outside his building, using pathetic fallacy to reflect the depressing mood. As he sits in the dark, lost and confused, after being told he has no quirk, he watches his favorite video in the hopes that he might find some answers. In contrast to the solos before it, the full string section obviously has some company, and also plays in a higher key. This shift up in key represents hope. The hope that despite all the odds, despite not having a quirk, Deku can still be a hero. As he turns around to ask his mom if he can be a hero too, there's a very obvious pause before she starts walking over to him. That unresolved 5 chord could still be heading toward a good ending. But then she comes and delivers the final blow and apologizes, and the somber cello solo comes back to tell Deku that he can't be a hero for now. Going into the first training exercise, Uraraka and Deku wait outside for Bakugo and Ida to get ready. Deku's nothing but jitters as he prepares himself to face off against Bakugo, who he's grown up being scared of and slightly in awe of due to his tenacity and power. As these insecurities cross through Deku's mind, we hear the familiar echo of the cello solo, which amplify his fears that he's been harboring since childhood. When he finishes listing off everything that makes him inferior to Bakugo, we get a turning point as he symbolically puts on his mask to quell his fear. The music abruptly pauses, and then we break into the full string section. The melody in the full string section moves up from the lower gloomy octave that the cello was in, up to a higher, more hopeful sounding register. Unlike the cello solo, which doesn't move anywhere, the full strings give us a sense of direction. This section represents a road forward from the self-doubt in the cello section. It carries with it the anguish and frustration from before, but it turns those feelings into a path for Deku to realize his dreams. As the section comes to an end, we're left on a very poignant 5 chord. It's clearly trying to resolve somewhere, but is it toward despair, or is it somewhere else? In this scene specifically, Anguish of the Quirkless is a key turning point where Deku seeks to change the connotation of his derogatory nickname that Bakugo gave him and make it into a positive hero name. After the training exercise between Bakugo and Deku is over, we go to the infirmary where All Might is hiding out in his skeleton form. As he starts his monologue about One For All, the cello solo contrasts his great power with his weakened state. As the song continues into the piano solo, we see the conversation shift from hiding his quirk to what being the symbol of peace really means. As the lone symbol of peace, the melancholy piano solo symbolically sits several octaves above the cello solo. It really hits hard when he says, "This is the responsibility of those of us with this power," since it shows how large the burden he has to bear really is. When Recovery Girl smiles and tells him that he has to start learning how to guide Deku, we begin to shift over to the full string section. In contrast to the scene where Deku is first preparing for the test, the piano solo plays on top of the string section. As we peek into his memories, we see the scenes of some of Deku's biggest moments that were set to powerhouses of the soundtrack, like You Say Run, You Can Be a Hero, and are recontextualized with Anguish of the Quirkless. These heroic flashback scenes coupled with the unison piano and strings paint a picture of both Deku and All Might at the starting line. Deku is trying to figure out how to use it one for all without breaking himself, and All Might still needs to learn how to teach Deku properly now that his power has been passed on to the next generation. As the flashback ends on the floating 5 chord, the silence is deafening as Deku gathers his bearings. The shots focus on the IV drip, the cast on his right arm, and then pan out to show the visible frustration on his face. In their original context, these scenes show Deku triumphing over his past self, but in this montage set to Anguish of the Quirkless, it shows that Deku still has a long way to go before he can truly control One for All. Anguish of the Quirkless as a whole characterizes the struggles Deku faces. It shows his frustrations of growing up without a quirk, and the hurdles he has to go through to become the new symbol of peace. By splitting up the song into its 4 main parts, and selectively using them to enhance specific scenes, Yuki Hayashi and Studio Bones use Anguish of the Quirkless to take the fantastic visuals to new heights. Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching this video. I'm just getting started with this channel, and I want to use it as a platform to discuss soundtracks. Whether it's an analysis about how a soundtrack helps flesh out a character, digging into a musical analysis of a specific song, comparing and contrasting 2 soundtracks, or something entirely different, I want to help give music some more attention that it rightfully deserves. See you all next time.